All right, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to be looking at a specific moment in time where sports, history, and national identity just completely collided. We are unpacking the 1954 World Cup, but specifically, we're zeroing in on the final match. You might know it as the Miracle of Bern. And the thing is, this wasn't just a football game. This match actually laid the very groundwork for the modern, multi-billion-dollar sports industry we know today. You know, an industry where data, analytics, and equipment technology dictate the future of the game. And beyond the pitch, it redefined an entire nation. Okay, let's dive into this.
So here's the big question. How exactly did a broken, post-war West Germany, a nation that was physically ruined and carrying this profound psychological trauma, manage to defeat a footballing Goliath that was, for all intents and purposes, invincible? That is the puzzle we're solving today, because it's an incredible story of tactical genius, sheer human endurance, and really the birth of modern football.
Section 1. The ultimate underdog story.
It's absolutely staggering when you look at the disparity between these two sides entering the tournament. On one side of the pitch, you've got Hungary, famously known as the Magical Magyars. This team had not lost a single match in 4 years. They were riding a 31-game unbeaten streak, and they were the reigning Olympic champions. Just an absolute juggernaut. On the other side, West Germany. We're talking just 9 years removed from the end of World War II. The country was physically divided by the Iron Curtain, economically completely depleted, and grappling with catastrophic national shame. They weren't some footballing powerhouse coming in to dominate. They were really just a team looking to participate.
To really understand the consensus at the time, you just have to look at the media. Out of 40 journalists polled right before the 1954 final, 39 predicted a Hungarian victory. 39 out of 40. Hungary was considered so overwhelmingly dominant that West Germany was basically just seen as a tiny speed bump on their inevitable path to the trophy.
Section 2. Meet the Magical Magyars.
The mastermind behind Hungary's insane success was their coach, Gustav Sebeś. And Sebeś was, without a doubt, an absolute visionary. At a time when everyone else was playing these super rigid standard formations, he introduced tactical innovations that just blew opponents out of the water. For instance, he used a deep-lying center forward, Nandor Hidekuti. So when Hidekuti dropped back into the midfield, he dragged traditional man-marking defenders right along with him, which completely dismantled the opponent's defense. This created a highly flexible 3-2-3-2 formation and left wide-open spaces for superstars like Ferenc Puskás and Sandor Kocsis to exploit. What we're seeing here is really the genesis of strategic modeling in sports analytics, literally the exact kind of tactical geometry that dictates the modern footballing industry today.
Which brings us to this incredible insight from Ferenc Puskás, who was arguably football's first true global superstar. He said, "When we attacked, everyone attacked. And in defense, it was the same. We were the prototype for total football." It is genuinely mind-bending to realize that it would be another 20 years before the Dutch made total football famous in the 1970s. The Magical Magyars were pulling off this complex, fluid strategy decades earlier. They were essentially playing a completely different sport than everyone else on the planet.
Section 3. Tactical Genius and Innovation.
But here's the twist. West Germany had a mastermind of their own, Sepp Herberger. He was methodical, pragmatic, and incredibly cunning. When West Germany had to play Hungary in the group stages earlier in the tournament, Herberger executed a super controversial master plan. He deliberately fielded a reserve side, and yeah, unsurprisingly, they were absolutely crushed 8-3 by Hungary. But Herberger wasn't playing for pride. He was playing to win the whole tournament. He accepted that heavy loss so he could study Hungary's tactics in depth without revealing his own best players, while simultaneously manipulating their path through the knockout rounds to secure a much better bracket. This was an early, radical form of tournament bracket optimization, a strategic trend that teams across all major sports now spend millions on using heavy data analysis.
Beyond just tactics, though, West Germany brought a massive technological advantage to the pitch. Adi Dassler, who, yes, is the founder of Adidas, provided the team with revolutionary boots featuring interchangeable screw-in studs. This meant the players could actually adapt their grip based on the condition of the pitch. This was the absolute vanguard of sports equipment technology. Think about the industry today, engineering everything from carbon fiber running shoes to biometric moisture-wicking kits to shape athletic performance. Well, in 1954, that technological edge was about to become the ultimate equalizer.
Section 4. The match that changed history.
Imagine the scene. 62,500 spectators packed into the Wankdorf Stadium in Bern. And crucially, the heavens had completely opened up. A torrential downpour had turned the pitch into a thick, muddy bog. This actually became known as Fritz Walter weather, named after the West German captain who historically played his best football in the rain. So while the slick, heavy pitch started to strip the speed right out of the Hungarian attack, the German players calmly screwed in longer studs to give them vastly superior traction.
The whistle blows, and even in the thick mud, Hungary is ferocious. Just 6 minutes into the game, an injured but determined Ferenc Puskás scores. 2 minutes later, Zoltán Csibor makes it 2-0. Now, for most teams, the game is over right there. You just pack it up. But West Germany didn't break. Right at the 10-minute mark, Max Morlock slides a goal back. By the 18th minute, Helmut Rahn equalizes. Suddenly, the score is 2-2, and the invincible Hungarians are dragged into an absolute dogfight. The game rages on, tense, incredibly physical, totally exhausting, until the 84th minute, when Helmut Rahn finds the ball at the edge of the box. Back in Germany, millions of people were huddled around their radios, and they heard the legendary broadcaster Herbert Zimmermann deliver what is undoubtedly the most famous call in German sports history. He shouts, completely overwhelmed with emotion. Rahn has to shoot from distance. Rahn shoots, goal, goal, goal! Germany are world champions. Radio had this immense, unique power to connect the population back then, and in that exact fleeting moment, a shared collective joy just swept across a nation that hadn't had a single reason to celebrate in nearly a decade.
The return home was nothing short of spectacular. The team traveled back on a train known as the Red Flash, but their journey kept getting interrupted. Not by mechanical failure or anything like that, but by hundreds of thousands of fans pouring out of their homes, physically standing on the railway tracks just to catch a glimpse of the champions. It was this unprecedented, massive emotional release for the entire public.
Section 5. Rebuilding a Broken Nation. If you dig into the history of this, you'll constantly hear this one phrase tied to the 1954 World Cup. Wir sind wieder wer, which translates to, we are somebody again. Now, this wasn't some slogan cooked up by politicians, it was a completely spontaneous expression from the public. After the profound horrors of the war, the devastation, and the crippling national guilt, this victory offered a rare, unblemished moment of national pride. It's widely considered a foundational legend for the modern Federal Republic because it provided a type of psychological healing that politics and economics alone simply couldn't offer at the time.
But we have to remember, geopolitically, Germany was a divided nation, and the reaction to this victory was incredibly complex depending on where you stood. While West Germany experienced unprecedented jubilation and a huge surge in economic optimism, across the Iron Curtain, the reaction was vastly different. In East Germany, communist authorities viewed the victory as highly unwelcome and potentially destabilizing. They were already struggling to explain the rising economic prosperity over in the West, and this massive unifying victory under the banner of West Germany was exactly the kind of nationalistic fervor they wanted to suppress.
The legendary German footballer Franz Beckenbauer summed it up perfectly. He said, "Suddenly Germany was somebody again." For anybody who grew up in the misery of the post-war years, Bern was an extraordinary inspiration. The entire country regained its self-esteem. So you see, the Miracle of Bern wasn't just about lifting a trophy. It was basically a societal reset button.
Section 6. Myths, Controversies, and Legacy.
Naturally, with a game this massive, for decades, skeptics have asked, was the Miracle of Bern fixed? The core of this controversy revolves around the final minutes of the match itself. Ferenc Puskás actually scored what appeared to be a completely legitimate equalizing goal right at the very end, but it was ruled out by a highly controversial offside flag from the linesman. Now, with no video review back then, the human element ruled supreme. And frankly, it's exactly this kind of historic controversy that drove the sports industry's eventual push toward things like VAR and goal line technology that so heavily shaped the modern game today. Then, there's the medical mystery. Shortly after the tournament, several German players actually fell ill and were hospitalized with jaundice. Well, this immediately fueled intense rumors that the team had been using a performance-enhancing methamphetamine called Pervitin. However, later, historical and sports science analyses revealed the real story. The players were given highly concentrated vitamin C injections, but the dark, tragic part here is that the team doctor had used surplus military syringes that hadn't been properly sterilized, which led to a hepatitis outbreak among the players. It's a really stark, grim reminder of how resource-scarce the post-war era truly was, even for elite athletes competing on the world stage. Despite all the controversies, though, the tactical and historical legacy of 1954 is just undeniable. Get this. To this day, the 1954 tournament holds the record for the highest scoring average in World Cup history at a staggering 5.38 goals per match. But maybe more importantly, West Germany's victory signaled the end of football's purely romantic, unstructured era. It marked the beginning of a future where systemic infrastructure, rigorous tactical discipline, and technological adaptation became the gold standard for the entire global sports industry.
Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. If 90 minutes of football, literally just 11 men chasing a ball around in the mud, could spark the psychological rebirth of a shattered nation and lay the cultural foundation for modern Germany, well, what does that say about the true power of sports in our society? Is it really just a game, or is it arguably the most accessible, powerful form of collective identity we have? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.